As usual, we're giving people just a few minutes to get joined in on the Zoom meeting. This meeting of the South Bay School Board is now in session. We will begin with our land acknowledgement. Arnie.
Thank you. I want to start by expressing that my computer is currently giving me trouble, so I've been unable to pull up the resource that I had hoped to share. But I want to acknowledge, and South Whidbey School District acknowledges, that we gather, live, and learn on Indigenous land. These are the lands of the Coast Salish, Stillaguamish, Suquamish, Lower Skagit, and Tulalip peoples, the tribes collectively associated with the Tulalip tribes. And these lands are an ancestral, a present, and a future home for people who have a generations-long tie to this place and a sacred spiritual connection with this land, these waters, and the plant, animal, and other being communities that make our collective community here. What I had hoped to share today was a resource for learning more about the stories of First Peoples in this region. I was looking for a link to stories by and about Indigenous authors. I'm currently unable to get online, but if you Google books by Indigenous Pacific Northwest authors, there's a wonderful resource from the University of Washington that includes links to some stories from First Peoples, and then also Snow Isle Libraries is a wonderful resource for finding contemporary fiction by Indigenous authors. So I would encourage people to read books from a diversity of perspectives, including from Pacific Northwest Indigenous perspectives, as one way of rooting in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to public comment protocol. Just a note that if you'd like to sign up to speak for public comment, please see Ms. Macaro in the back. If you are on Zoom, please use the Q&A function to enter your name and location, and then we will know that you have a comment, and then you can start typing it up, and I will read it when the appropriate time comes. Please remember that in order to everyone will have up to 5 minutes, and in order to maintain the dignity of both those speaking and those receiving the information, we ask that if you do have criticisms, please criticize the action or idea, not the person. We do have a new resource. We've got these wonderful pamphlets that Mrs. Macaro put together on the chair by the door that talks a little bit about our board and our meetings and what we do and how we do it. Just for those who are not used to coming to these meetings and want a little more information about that, or want links to resources like our videos and our agendas and that sort of thing. It is also on the website. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any objections to approving the agenda and minutes as presented? Hearing none, the agenda and minutes are approved as presented. We will go on to, we have one presentation today from Goosefoot, Dr. Moshe.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce Rose Hughes. She's Goosefoot's finance director, and she's going to present to the board about a grant opportunity that they are applying for. So if Rose, if you would use the mic up here so folks can hear you online as well.
Thank you so much for giving me this time to share with the board and the community information about Generations Place, which is a proposal for affordable apartments to be built in Langley. I'm just going to take a few minutes to provide some general information and then to direct people to resources that they can access online or ways to get in touch with Goosefoot. As some of you may be aware, Goosefoot Community Fund has been looking into the problem of rental housing availability for local working people of modest means in our community for quite some time. As a result of that work, Goosefoot is launching a new organization to deal specifically with this issue. It's called Island Roots Housing, and it operates as a project of Goosefoot under Goosefoot's fiscal sponsorship. Island Roots' purpose is to create housing affordable to people who live and work in Island County with an initial focus on workforce rental housing, to broaden the community's understandings of the needs and opportunities for this work, and to develop and preserve diverse rural scale housing solutions through partnerships and coalitions. And that's why we were presenting this update to you. The superintendent's office was involved from the beginning of this effort to craft, understand the needs, and in assisting and advising Goosefoot in crafting the solutions that we have subsequently developed over time. This effort really started back in April of 2022. And we've also had assistance with Mary Mitchell, who's been an advisor to us from early days as well. And we look forward to partnering with the school district once the project gets to the point of leasing up. So I'm here to provide an update and also to invite to an invitation for input from the school district on an ongoing basis and from the South Whidbey School District community as well. So one of our core values that this project is really embodying is to design solutions that reflect community needs and provide community-wide benefits. As I'm sure that the school board is aware, South Whidbey has been losing young families over the past many years, and a big part of that is due to the cost of housing. At this point, only 10% of Langley's population in the city of Langley is under the age of 20 years old, while most larger houses are occupied by 2 people or less. And so not surprisingly, the local workforce is shrinking and positions can't be filled due to a lack of attainable and affordable housing. So I have provided the board with some information about the project. There's also a board there, and I have a few posters that I can hand out to people who are in the room about this particular project. We are currently in the pre-construction phase of this project. We just completed feasibility. And what that feasibility has enabled us to do is to apply to the Housing Trust Fund, the Washington State Housing Trust Fund, for part of our financing. We're going to be asking for about half of our financing through the State Housing Trust Fund. And the other funding will come from various other means, one of which is a grant that we have already received from Island County to do all this pre-construction work that's a little over $1 million. That enabled us to hit the ground running. And generally speaking, affordable rental multifamily housing is incredibly complex to build, complex to finance, and it's a complex social process to do it where it really responds to community needs and has meaningful input from the community that it will serve and the surrounding community that it will impact. So we're very grateful for the funding that we've received to date, and we're very optimistic about securing the rest of the funding needed for this project. If everything goes perfectly and surprisingly and uniquely smoothly, then we hope that we will be in construction before the end of 2024. So our project goals are to develop rental homes affordable to people who work locally or have offers of employment locally, to address the need for multi-generation homes in Langley, to keep project costs down so that we can ensure permanent affordability and viability of this apartment complex, and to complement the scale and the village character of Langley. We also have broader goals. As Island Roots Housing, our goal is to build technical tools and process models for other small-scale housing projects throughout Island County, and to show that small-scale affordable rental projects can be done. So one question that we get a lot is what qualifies as affordable? And unfortunately, it's a very complicated answer, because when you have a variety of funding sources, they actually tend to look at different statistics and then analyze what that means for affordability in different ways. So I can't give you an answer now that will be the answer once we are actually leasing up. But generally speaking, the project is currently conceived as housing for households earning up to 80% of Island County area median income. And an example of that is HUD looks at area median income, and then it figures out what is affordable for each household size. So it multiplies, for you people who are doing your math, multiplies some things by 0.9 and then divides other things by 0.1 and adds this and that. And in 2023, HUD calculated that 80% of AMI for Island County was $60,150 for a 3-person household. And in terms of an affordable rent level, this would equate to $1,504 for a 2-bedroom unit. This is how HUD looks at affordability for rental units, HUD being the federal Housing and Urban Development Agency that tends to oversee all funding. We don't currently have or are applying for HUD funding specifically, but this is a general guideline. So in terms of this project, it is at 2nd and DeBrun in Langley. It is across from the former machine shop, which might be familiar for members of the school district. We acquired the land in March of 2022 with a 50% down payment on the land. And then thanks to the Island County grant, we were able to secure full site control and start working in, we have an architect on board. And one of the reasons why we chose this architect after a very extensive search and many qualified ones is because community input is part of their process from the get-go. So we had a community design workshop on August 7th, and we had 73 people from the community involved in providing input. And we have a survey that is online where people can give even more detailed input regarding the project and regarding their needs as people who might need this type of housing and be potential residents, which is very important for us to hear specifically to center and elevate those voices that are not often heard and often don't have the time luxury to be able to come to public meetings. So I want to direct people towards that survey, and then I'll wrap it up here. And that survey, the easy way to get to it is through the brand new beta website that we have. So it's still under construction. It doesn't have any branding, but islandrootshousing.org is our new website. And at the very top, there's a banner with a link to the survey. The survey is available in English and in Spanish language. And again, that website is islandrootshousing.org. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that housing, particularly workforce level affordable housing, is a major concern for the school district. We have lost in the past couple of years highly qualified teachers that we had or staff that we had offered jobs to because they couldn't find housing. So this is clearly critical, not just to the greater community, but also to the school district. So we appreciate your leadership on this. Are there any questions from the board?
I would just like to add that I attended the community engagement meeting that you hosted, and I want to thank you for the integrity and breadth and depth of your process. It's really notable how much work you're putting into the community engagement piece of this project, and I think it'll repay all of us in spades. Thank you.
Ms. Hughes, thanks for the update. I really think you're solving one of the critical problems here in our community. How can the board help?
Getting the word out and also helping us to understand the demographics. So we understand that this affects both staff opportunities as well as people in the district. And so we are looking for ongoing engagement with the school district. The fact that you've made staff available to help advise us has been very, very important. We would ask that that continue. And we do look forward to, as we get closer to leasing up and we're ready to advertise, that there is availability. It is only 14 units. It's 14 units that are 2 and 3 bedroom sizes. And so it's not a lot of units, but it's the beginning of many projects of this ilk. And so when it comes time to let people know that it actually is available, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. And I'd love to talk with you offline at some point about how you got the word out for that workshop, because we continue to try to get more people at our workshops and community forums, and it sounded like you have had a great result.
Well, let me just address that because there might be questions. We actually didn't, we targeted specifically people who were stakeholders, meaning near neighbors, potential residents, people within the city of Langley, the organizations that are affected by this, like the members of the Chamber of Commerce. And we went out to them and met with a lot of those stakeholder groups in their place and invited them. So that's how that particular meeting went. We will have another meeting where it will be a broader community meeting and more broadly advertised, but we really wanted to make sure that the people who are most affected got to have airtime.
Excellent. That sounds like a fantastic method. I wish we could do it for our entire district.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our consent agenda. Are there any objections to approving the consent agenda as presented? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved as presented. We now move on to public comments. Again, if you are on the Zoom call and would like to make public comment, please use the Q&A function to enter your name and general location, just Clinton, Freeland, Langley, unincorporated Island County, Coopville, whatever, now, and then start typing up your comment. Are there any comments from folks in attendance? No one signed up. Okay, I'll give it just a moment or two just to, in case anyone's typing in their name and location now, and then we'll move on to new business. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We've got a lot of memoranda on the agenda today, so we'll try to move through them quickly. Each of these was discussed, almost all of these were discussed at the workshop 2 meetings ago, I believe it was now. A few of them that do not need a second reading are coming in new. So memorandum 2324 01, approval of the update to South Liberty School District Policy 1005, key functions of the board. This is just quick updates to get some more detail on the goal setting process and make the cooperation with the superintendent explicit. Any comments, questions, or discussion from the board?
I have a very minor amendment to make, to strike that quotation mark at the end.
I don't think we need to make an amendment for that. I think that that can be just grammatical.
Okay.
Okay. Can we get some advisory votes from our student representatives?
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232401, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Memorandum 232402, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 1611, conflicts of interest. This is just a wording issue, removing his or her and replacing them with their, or just removing them entirely where unnecessary. This is just part of our continued efforts to make the policies as welcoming as policies can be to anyone who might be reading them. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Advisory votes from our student representatives, please.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232402, please say aye. Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Memorandum 232403, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 1820, evaluation of the board. This has slightly more substantive updates. Let's see here. Do we have the? I don't know that that's the latest. Here we go. I think this one's the latest version. No. Okay. Yes, we'll come back to this one. So memorandum 232404, approval of the new policy 2230, transitional kindergarten program. This one is new to our, based on our new program that has been put together this year. Any comments, discussion?
Brooke, I'll be recusing myself on this one.
Okay.
Thank you to Dr. Moshe for getting the program up and running so quickly.
Yes, I'm very excited that the program associated with this policy has gotten a large number of, has hit capacity, I believe, and has every indication of serving the needs of our community. Advisory votes from our student representatives, please.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232404, please say aye. Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Memorandum 232405, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 3123, withdrawal prior to graduation. This is another one that is just wording updates, just language updates. Any comments, questions, discussion? Okay, student advisory votes.
Aye.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232405, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Memorandum 232406, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 3141, non-resident students. This is another one that's just language updates. Any discussion or comments? Okay, student advisory votes, please.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232406, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Memorandum 232407, approval of the update to South Whitby School District Policy 5409, unpaid holidays for reasons of faith or conscience. Another one of these that's just wording updates. Any comments, discussion? Okay, student representative advisory votes, please.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232407, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. Memorandum 232408, approval of the update to South Liberty School District Policy 6215, voucher certification and approval. This is one more that's just language updates to my recollection. Any discussion? Oh, yes. Thank you, Dr. Moshe. There is an update to the amount as well that was discussed at the last board meeting, or 2 board meetings ago. Okay, student advisory votes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232408, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. Now we move on to new items that have not been looked at yet. Oh, all set? So we'll go back now to memorandum 232403, approval of the update to South Liberty School District Policy 1820, evaluation of the board. This is the wording that we discussed at the last workshop, just to provide a little bit more detail on who is there, when it happens, and putting the note in there that we will use agreed upon tools and methods in order to make sure that we agree upon tools and methods before doing this. During the discussion, it was mentioned that we didn't want to prescribe those tools and methods because they may change based on best practices. And this way we can just follow along with those best practices. Any discussion, comments, questions? Give Joe the time to do that close reading that he's doing. No, good. Okay, student representatives, your advisory votes, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232403, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. Now we will move on to the new parts of new business. Memorandum 232409, approval of the contract with Integris for 10-year facility studies amount not to exceed $87,720. Dr. Moshe, I'd like to turn this over to you to give a brief explanation.
So as required by law, every 10 years, school districts have to do a facilities plan, a 10-year facilities plan. Ours is coming to an end. And this is a proposal to, at a maximum of that amount, we have several items that will satisfy pieces of this that are already done. And I'm not sure to the degree the board would want focus groups and so on. So we've built capacity. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will expend that amount. We're just asking for the authority at this point until we know more about what we need for scope. For example, the structural analysis, a lot of that was done in the preliminary work for the bond. So again, this is the outside amount we're looking to approve. This is the same architectural firm that's done some of the preliminary work. And both the superintendent and assistant superintendent recommend that the board approve this contract.
Comments, questions, discussion from the board?
Regarding the focus groups, I don't want to be prescriptive about the means of outreach and community involvement, but I do think it's important to have it in the way that these professionals see fit with your guidance, since we know the community best.
Absolutely agree. Thank you. I have to admit, I had sticker shock when I looked at this at first, and then I realized it is a 10-year project, or it is good for 10 years. And then it made me feel a lot better about the price. Any other comments or questions? Sorry, power issues up here. Electrical power issues.
That was a good one.
Okay, not hearing any more questions or debate on this. Advisory votes from our student representatives.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232409, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has passed. The next two are the result of a lot of hard work on the part of our administration and the union representation from PSE and SEIU. And I'm very glad that both sides are pleased with this. So the first one is Memorandum 232410, approval of the collective bargaining agreement between PSE and the district effective 9/1/23 till 8/31/24. Dr. Moshe, would you like to give some details?
Absolutely. We negotiated with these two groups together, even though they're approved separately. So what I share with for one is the same for the other. This includes a wage increase that is the implicit price deflator plus 0.3%, as well as a retention bonus that's 1 year only. And we have a reopener in April to begin a wage study. They were ratified last week by both unions, and we came to agreement after 3 sessions. So both Dan and I feel very confident that these are fair and equitable contracts for our staff, and recommend approval.
Questions, comments, discussion from the board?
I'd like to thank the administration and representatives from our unions for engaging in these negotiations and arriving at this opportunity to take a vote on this matter. Thank you.
Is there a document that we're approving?
We actually have the documentation, but what I essentially said to you is what the document says, and they're finalizing the language to incorporate in both of their collective bargaining agreements.
Gotcha. I'm going to abstain just because I'm not seeing what I'm voting on, but I just want to verbally say that I echo the sentiment about getting to an agreement, especially in a time right now where so many workers are on strike because they're not getting what they need. So I appreciate the work you've done.
Okay, student advisory votes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those in favor of approving memorandum 232410, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. That collective bargaining agreement is approved. Memorandum 232411, approval of the collective bargaining agreement between SEIU and the district effective 9/1/23 till 8/31/24. This is the other half of this. Are there any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, student representative.
Director Williford, if I can just share for the community, the way that the collective bargaining process works out is that the entities come to the table, they come to an agreement, and then that agreement is then taken back to the workforce voters, and they vote to ratify the contract that's presented. So I just wanted to personally say that I feel comfortable voting for the language, knowing that the labor union that it would be impacting has already voted to ratify it. So I just wanted to clarify that point for people listening at home.
Thank you very much. Okay, all those in favor of approving memorandum 232411, please say aye.
Brooke.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. Advisory votes from our student representatives.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and sorry about that. Now, memorandum, all those in favor of approving memorandum 232411, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. The memorandum has been approved. That is the conclusion of our new business. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our reports. We have our financial and enrollment report first. Mr. Pullman.
We'll begin with the enrollment report, which is September. So we basically have in our basic education program roughly 1,041 FTE, full-time equivalent students, broke down in different buildings. And then in the ALE program, we have roughly 65 FTE there about 7.5 of those being Spokane Virtual Academy students, and the remainder being the ALE program we have here in place. Special education at this point has about 173 students in it, and our vocational program at the secondary building has roughly 62 FTE. So how does that compare to where we thought we are going to be? Well, it's 1,106 FTE. We had budgeted 1,106 point. So we're just about exactly where we had budgeted. But again, the budget is a year-long, the budget is a year-long look at it, not just 1 month. But normally September is very similar to what our average is for the year. Sometimes it varies a little bit, but not much. And then a breakdown of how many kids are in the TK5 program, which there's 463 currently. 6-8 has 281. The high school 912, that's 341. And then South Woodbury Academy High School has about 21 to get us to those numbers. The number that isn't showing up on here is the TK. We have 16 FTE in there. Again, we did not budget that because that happened after the budget process, but that will be 16 more students that will be reported to OSBI for September. They started later, so it was a later process for them. Just a quick look by grade over the last 3 years. You can see the gray is the current year, and gives you an idea on the different class sizes, which ones have gone up in student population and which of those might be a little smaller than they have been in previous years. It also gives you the picture of what the basically the K3 program looks like compared to the 912 program. Smaller at the beginning of our enrollment trend, and we've seen this for a while now that we are seeing graduating out of the high school. And this is just an annual look at the months. So you can see September is the red, again, a little lower than it has been for the last 3 years, but it's something that we anticipate in our budget process. And then this is just another way of looking at it to get to that average. And again, we average September through June. So we really don't know what our enrollment funding is until we hit June of 2024, the 10th month of our fiscal year. And then just a historical, look for the last few years of what our enrollment has looked like. So, we have these leveling off periods, and if we go further back, you'll see the same scenario, and then we'll drop and then we level off. But I think we're just about that level off period. So our financial report, this is as of August 31st, which is our last month of our fiscal year, which runs September through August. Our revenue year to date and the revenue and expenditure will change slightly in the next month as I do year-end close. Both of those will probably go up by about $200,000 revenue and expenditure. So it doesn't really change the picture, but revenue is a little over 22 million, where expenditures are 22.2 million. So about $200,000 difference between expenditure and revenue for the year. So fairly close to a balanced budget, but not quite there. The lower part is just a look at what that revenue looks like. You can see it's very sporadic. We get higher revenue in the fall and in the spring when we collect our levy collections, and then it bounces out through there. We did have an anomaly in January of this year, and that's because our enrollment was higher than budgeted, and we got a bump in funding for that 1 month. And then our expenditures pretty similar until we get to the end part of the year, but some of that has to do with when we have MSOC expenditures, non-employee costs coming in. We did have to spend about $75,000 because of the septic pump going down at this building over the summer, which was an unexpected, which is that big bump you see in August that we wouldn't probably not have seen normally. And just a revenue expenditure trend, it's kind of where we are. And we really want to get to the point where we have been for the last couple of years, where there are basically a balance. Ideally, revenue would be slightly higher than the expenditure, but we're getting close to getting to that point. Budget status report, just a breakdown of where does our revenue come from, the $22 million, and what programs we spend that $22.2 million in, which consists of our regular basic ed instruction, the federal funds, which again, we've talked about going away. This is the last year we will have those federal funds, special education, the vocational program, and then a variety of other programs. So it gives you that. It also gives you the beginning fund balance, about 5.3 million, and ending fund balance, about 5.1. So it's that $200,000 difference between revenue and expenditure. Encumbrances don't matter in payroll because they are totally gone by the end of August. We did have about 200,000 in encumbrances that we have paid since this report. So we still, though, stayed within budget. And fund balance, you can see that our fund balance, or this is total expenditures, I'm sorry. Our total expenditures average about 1.85 million a month. And out of that, almost 1.6 million of that is payroll costs. So that's the bulk of what we spend. So our payroll is about a 7% of our revenue expenditure on a monthly basis. Asset and liability balance sheet basically tells you where we have our funds and who we owe. And again, the same thing with the fund balance report. Fund balance, the red line is the current year. Very similar process in most years as far as when it goes up and down. We ended about where we were last year at this time, slightly lower, but not much. But it's a very typical, it's also a, about 23% fund balance. So it's a very healthy fund balance. Breakdown of revenue. It's our property taxes, our local school generated revenue, our state and special purpose and general purpose, both based on enrollment numbers, and then our federal dollars. And you see our federal dollars this year, a little over $2 million. And that's a lot of that ESSER and CARES funds and things that will not be here in 23-24. Property taxes are basically flat. Again, that's based on or limited by the number of students we have. So as we get smaller, even though the multiplier may go up, we still don't receive more local funds. And then the state funds, again, based on FTE. So as we get smaller, even though IPD and some of the things increase the multipliers in the formula, it still doesn't generate more revenue.
I know it's a small portion of the overall budget, but I love seeing the local revenue back up where it was pre-pandemic already. So
Correct. And
that's
most
a
of that's
testament
community center.
That's a testament to the hard work of the team there at the community center. So
Yeah.
thank you to them.
They're doing a good job. And then just a quick expenditure look, certificated salaries, classified salaries, employee benefits, the majority of where we spend our money, and then supplies, services, and travel. And you see services continue to go up. And that's due to things like the cost of utilities, insurance, fuel, things that we have no control over, basically. And I'll give you a little more information on that in a moment. Professional services, when we talk about services, sometimes people don't understand what that includes. General services are a lot of different things. If we hire a contractor to come in and do a repair to our facility, if we have septic pumping costs, those type things, or any other professional company that we use for a purpose. You also see that utilities are, almost $600,000. And that's just the electricity, the heating oil, the telephone, the water costs in Langley, the sewer costs in Langley, those type things. And then our liability insurance, $325,000 in 22-23, going to $400,000 in 23-24. So that's one that is growing dramatically over time. And we are part of a pool, self-insured. So it has to do with the claims and all the things that go with that and liability in this environment. The Running Start Spokane Virtual Academy is a kind of an in and out situation. We collect the money and then we pay the community colleges. So it really doesn't matter to us if it's, 300,000 or 300 million, because it doesn't affect our bottom line basically. And then we have grant funded services. So we talk about those federal funds that we had, almost 250,000 of that cost was those federal funds that will not be here. And then we have our food service management company fees, the cost of running the food service program. And then things that like the legal costs, our audit costs, which isn't spelled right, election costs, leasehold taxes on our rentals, things like that. I'm old. You have to give me a little bit of room. Again, things that are required that we have no control over and that we don't, set the fees on. Skyward software program and then EDS services. So it gives you a look at what those professional services are. And there's not a lot of this that we have control over. And I wanted to point out, when we talk about underfunding, utilities and insurance, it's getting worse. If you look in the 1920 school year, we received $465,000 from OSPI for utilities and insurance. And our utilities insurance cost us about $650,000 that year, which cost the district about $185,000 out of our local funds to pay for that. In 2021, we actually received less from OSPI because again, it's based on student enrollment. But our costs went up to 665,000. So the amount we're paying locally increases. And then in 21-22, we received again less, 424,000 from OSPI. But looking at the utilities and insurance costs, it jumped to 840,000. So now we're paying about 416,000 out of local funds. The important part of this is that we go back to our local revenue from our levies, it's not changing. So it's not going up, and OSPI isn't making adjustments based on what the actual cost of these things are. They're doing IPD 3.7% when utilities and especially insurance might be going up 25, 28% a year. So it's a situation where we're taking more out of local funds, which we don't have local funds to offset it, which means it has to come from someplace else. The good news is we're not alone. If we look at our ESD, we see the same situation in every single district. The ones that have green, that means that they were receiving more state funding than they were spending on utilities and insurance. But if you look to the far right, we get to 21-22, there's only one district, Arlington, that actually is still spending less than they're receiving. Everybody else is receiving much more. And even the large districts who traditionally, because of scope and size, were able to spend less than smaller districts who traditionally were spending 25, 28, 30% more, are also in that situation where they are now spending more than they're receiving from the state on the funding model. So again, it's looking at that state funding model and wondering why it isn't working. Well, there's some very strong components in there that tell us that there's a problem with it.
It especially impacts smaller districts if you look at the percentage that they're paying. And that issue of scale, we often get told that, you know, we spend more per pupil. Well, you've got to do certain things and you don't have a choice. And so our costs keep rising, and we know that, and we keep talking about it, but this is just a perfect example of the impact to small districts. If you look at the percentage that's unfunded.
I was looking at the island districts in particular. We are the lowest of them listed here, or not quite, but like all the San Juan Island districts are huge. La Conner, it's not good anywhere. That's a disturbing trend and something that we will have to raise up to our legislators level to discuss.
And speaking of which, just so I know who to be mad at here, you've been mentioning OSPI, but is it true that technically the process is OSPI makes a recommendation to the state legislators and ultimately the state legislature decides how the funding actually goes at the end of the day?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. OSPI and the governor both present budgets to the legislature, and then they throw those away and they create their own. And then the House and the Senate each create a budget, and then they create a compromise budget. And that's the one that we eventually will use. So yes, it's done at the state level, not OSPI, but at the legislative level.
Thank you.
Okay. The other funds, debt service currently, was there? Okay, debt service currently has $1,492 in it. No payment due for a while till we get to the next fiscal year, which is December. ASB has about 81,000, and I'll show you a graph for that because I'm keeping track of how that balance is going. The Transportation Vehicle Fund has 679,000, received 375,000 funding for the electric school bus. The charging station showed up this week. We're having it installed in a couple of weeks, so I'm hoping the school bus will show up after that. And then maybe we can get a ride on it. That'd be kind of fun. So we'll do that. And then the Private Purse Trust Fund has about $806,000 in it. So it's a fund that we can only spend the interest on it, so it doesn't really change much. Any questions I could answer for you?
You may not have this answer, but I'm wondering, after looking at the size of the monthly payroll expenditure, Would it be correct to say that we are one of the South Whidbey community's largest employers?
I think on South Woodby, I would say yes. We're traditionally the largest, but I think we're probably in the top 3 now.
Sure.
But yeah, we are
That's
one
a-
of the largest employers in the South End.
It's a fair number of jobs for a small community.
Yeah, you know,
And it just occurs to me, this is just a personal reflection off the top of my head, but when we decided as a board to present a bond to the community, we're talking about providing spaces in which a number of our neighbors work, as well as a number of our students learn. So I just was struck by the number of jobs reflected in that payroll number. Thank you.
I really appreciate seeing the detail on services now and then. It's another point, another part of the budget that I'm now learning about that I really appreciate seeing the details and how that splits out. So thank you very much for including that this time.
well, I think it's important that as a board, you understand how our funding model works or doesn't work. And there's some very important pieces of it that are not working well, at least for South Woodby in the last couple of years. So it's important that as a board, you understand those. A lot of it isn't about, how we manage our money. It's about the amount of money we receive in certain areas, because a lot of our funding is categorical, which means we have to spend it in a certain way and we're not able to use it, as we choose. So it's important to understand that part of it. And I think, as the board changes, it's important because I forget sometimes that people don't know what I know, right? So it's important to reiterate that occasionally.
Well, and just like it's important for us to provide direction through the superintendent for the district, it's important for the district and those who have that knowledge to provide direction for us on what we can elevate as a school board to the community and to legislators. So I appreciate that detail very much. The public comment period is over. If you do have questions, they can be, this is a meeting of the board in public, Mr. Rose. This is not a workshop where we have back and forth. Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Poolman from the board? Okay, we'll move on to our student board members' reports.
So this week, wait one second. We have homecoming week next week coming up, led by the sophomore ASB. We have the dress up days, which are pretty fun, like blue and white day on Friday and stuff. Right off the cut, yeah.
Then we have my favorite things, after school activities. We have Top Gun, which is volleyball for everyone that's not currently in volleyball. So it's super fun. I think the senior class is looking good this year. Then we have Color Fest, which is always fun because we get to throw colors on everyone. Ultimate Frisbee, and I'm hoping it rains because that's always fun, but we'll see how it goes. And then we have the bonfire, and we actually got approved to do it this year, which is great. And Capture the Flag, which is also always a fun and classic one.
We have the hallway decorating, which is always really fun. I think we have some good themes this year, and it's going to end up being really cool looking. Of course, the homecoming dance is coming up, once again planned by the sophomore ASB, and it's looking really good.
Everyone is really enjoying the extra 30 minutes in the morning. It's been really nice in the morning, and then after school ending at 2:50 hasn't been affecting schedules too much, which is also really nice. For kids that have sports, they're still getting home at a reasonable time. And then for kids that have work are still able to get to work at an okay time, which is great to see. And the extra 30 minutes, so appreciated.
Good, because it's not so great for us elementary parents.
Yeah, at the start of the year, there were a couple of concerns around the late buses and the traffic in the parking lots. The principals have been on that though, however, and there's been a noticeable difference from the start of the year to now. The buses were originally late the first 2 weeks, but now they're really altered and looking good. There might be a new lane for drop-offs in the high school parking lot, which will help out with traffic along with modified bus times, which have been helping out.
It's college season for a lot of seniors, so everyone's busy working on their applications, which is very stressful, but also kind of fun to see where I might end up next year and where the rest of my grade is planning on doing for the next few years of their life. So that's really fun and kind of scary, but
Fall sports are in full swing. Cross country is going on an overnight trip this weekend to Yakima for a race.
And volleyball hosted an invitational with 18 teams, and the Falcons placed 4th, which is incredible. That's super cool. And then Falcon football kept the bucket in their rival game against Coopville. So that's always fun. That's always one of the funnest games of the year. Lots of energy and lots of students showing up.
We had a really well planned out welcome assembly. That was a huge success. A lot of spirit from the students. Also, spirit wise, I think it's just been better this year with the later start time. Everyone's just been more energetic and everything. And I'm really excited for homecoming week with that, because with just the extra spirit in general, I think it's going to be extra good during homecoming week.
We had our club fair yesterday and we had over 10 clubs participate, which was super cool. It's a fun opportunity for new students and freshmen, or maybe students that don't know a lot of what's happening, to learn about the different clubs in the school, see what they might be interested in. I know Ecology Club had this bike that made smoothies by pedaling on it, which was super cool to see. And there's just a lot of different fun activities that you could check out and see what you might be interested in. And then for students who maybe didn't see a club that they liked, they learned how they might be able to create a club. So I know of a few students who are in the works. I know a robotics club. There's a few students interested in that. And I think those would be super cool to add to the school. Middle school wise, the middle school jazz band especially likes the later starts, because they don't have to get to the school as early as they did in the past. But I know the grades as a whole really like the 8:15.
The middle school ASB is working to include the 6th graders on things, which is really nice. Also, the adjustment with the 6th graders at the campus has gone really well, and it's kind of made for a better Cougar culture from what I've heard, which is really nice.
And the ASB is also working on a bullying prevention assembly for Bullying Prevention Month. And they're hoping to continue to do assemblies throughout the year, focusing on different themes of the different months, which is super cool to be able to teach students about what's going on in the school and how they can improve themselves and others. And also all the middle school sports and clubs are having a really fun time. We don't have a report for elementary today, but we hope to start that soon.
Yeah, I know that the change in start times makes it more difficult to get down to the elementary school, unlike last year. So we'll see what we can do to make that work.
So thank you. That sounds like there's a lot of energy and extra sleep is going well spent. I had a couple curiosities that I was wondering if you might be able to get some feelers out for and bring back for next month. The first one is the middle school transition in bringing up 6th graders. It would be really cool to hear some student voice about how that's going, how they're feeling about that shift and that change, in particular from those 6th grade voices. And we also at the elementary school have the new after school program with the Boys and Girls Club. And I think they had their first kickoff week this last week. So hearing some student voices around how those programs are going and how they're feeling about that would be of interest to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think hearing from students specifically that are in those programs would be a wonderful idea. I had no idea about the after school program with the Boys and Girls Club, but that's a super cool thing. And I wish I had those things when I was at school.
What month is anti-bullying month?
September, I believe, but it might be October.
Okay,
Thank
right.
you.
The one we're coming to. Okay, awesome. I'd be really interested in hearing what's going on as we, continue this next month's meetings.
Thanks for all the info. This was really great. Gotcha. Any college would be very lucky to have you and their student body. And Carter, I note that this is your first meeting since school started, and this was exactly the type of information that's really helpful for the board. So I really appreciate you hitting the ground running.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Moshe.
It's hard to go after the students. I just have to point that out. So for the superintendent's update, we certainly have adjusted back into the swing of school. And we did modify our transportation. It's a single bus run. Dan does have some information on the number of students on buses. If the board's interested in that, we can give you an update on that tonight. We certainly are I'm very, very thankful to all the staff who are stepping up into leadership roles because we have a reduced staff and we're all doing more with less time. And so there are a lot of people who've stepped up and are really helping. The administrators always step up and do more, but we have other staff who are also joining in that work and developing their own leadership skills. You already thanked our PSE and SEIU partners, labor partners, and it really was a very good negotiation. I don't know how you describe it, but really it went smoothly. I think needs were met and I really appreciated working with them. Next meeting, the principals will be presenting their school improvement plans, and it will be really awesome to see the goals aligned with the board goals for the superintendent. So that's happening next month. Also, you mentioned already that ITK is underway, or our transitional kindergarten. And again, great staff in that classroom. Met with Parks and Rec. They have a new executive director, Brian, and I'm really excited about the direction we're going together in terms of a renewed relationship and an improved interlocal agreement understanding. So that felt really good. Want to congratulate Susie Richards and the elementary school. They are the School of the Year, the Field STEM School of the Year, with the Pacific Education Institute. And Susie gets to go down there on October 6th to receive the award. And I understand there's a banquet and, you know, silent auction and all that good stuff. Unfortunately, it's all the way down in Lacey, but, you know. I'm re-upping the Superintendent's Advisory Council with students, trying to work out details on that. We do start and end at basically the same time. Last year, I had the younger students come an hour before they got out, and the older students come down from the high school and then catch the elementary bus. So we're trying to work out logistics on probably doing two, one at the elementary level, one at the middle high school level. More to follow. That'll start in October. Dan, transportation numbers, if you want to share, we have 9 bus runs. So he can share numbers and how that's going.
Sure. Yeah, in addition to modulating their time they arrive at the schools, which has taken a couple of weeks, but I think we're there. Everybody was here at 8:10 this morning, so they're making that. We also, as Joe said, we have 8 large buses we operate and 1 small special needs bus. Large buses hold about 78 students. That's a maximum capacity. And that's assuming that you're not all, adult sized people. If you're all adult size, you can probably get about 60 kids on a bus comfortably. So when I look at those, we actually are doing really well. We had to change a couple routes that basically went through Langley and dropped off a lot of kids at the community center or downtown Langley. They overloaded a bus the first week or so. So I think we have that fixed. But basically, I can quickly go through the 8 routes and kind of tell you what we have. We have a morning and an afternoon count. And normally the morning is a little lighter than the afternoon. But the first run has, first bus has 39 kids in the morning, 41 in the afternoon. Second bus has 46 and 50, 38 and 51, 39 and 37, 54 and 68. The 68 is one of the buses that drop kids in Langley. So once they get through Langley, they're under 55 kids on the bus at that point. 39, 51, 37, 41, 29, 43, and then 8 on our small special needs bus. So other than that one bus that goes to Langley and drops kids, we have a lot of capacity in those buses. Some are half full, some are 2/3 full, but nobody's really falling out of the seats into the aisles and out of the doorway. So I feel really confident with those numbers that we can provide a very safe, comfortable trip for our students.
And you might not know this off the top of my head because I just thought of it now, so I didn't get a chance to tell you ahead of time. But do you know if those numbers have gone up since the first week of school, or stayed about even, or?
Well, I only have the first about 7 days.
Oh, okay.
They went up slightly the first 5 days and then basically leveled off or dropped a little bit after that.
I was just curious if people were starting school, bringing their kids and picking them up and then going to the bus as they got more confident in the bus service. So that'll be interesting to track going forward.
It depends on the bus.
Yeah.
We have some that started with larger groups and now have fewer, and some that started a little lower and have, but it's like 5 difference on any of the buses between the start of school and the last count I have.
Thank you.
And in terms of the last item, they mentioned it, the students mentioned it. We are modifying the middle school, high school parking lot. We will be removing some spaces so that there's a dedicated drop-off spot. So again, folks are kind of learning what works for them, whether they drop off at the street and students walk in, or if they come into the parking lot and turn out. We've also opened different gates so that they can exit more quickly from the elementary and the middle high school. So we also have staff parking at the South Campus, so there's more room at the North Campus and so on. So we're adjusting. And I'm really happy about the students being happy about starting school later. So that's a big plus. And that's all I had.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer some appreciation on behalf of the community center. A lot of parents, day one, week one, were like, things are happening. And of course, I always ask them to, use chain of command and, touched base back with them like last week. They're like, it's getting better. So it's a huge service to have bus runs that come past the community center because there are so many different opportunities for kids after school. And so that's huge because parents only have to go one direction. And so I just want to extend some appreciation from those parents and from the folks at the community center, putting on my civilian hat for just a second, and know that that's a huge service and that is appreciated.
And I wanted to note that the opening the gate here at the elementary school has helped a lot. It was a little gnarly that first week, but it's cleared up a lot, and that really helped. So kudos on problem solving that. Thank you very much. We'll move on to board comments and reports. Do we have folks? Do we want to start on this? I know we have a number of comments. Do we want to start on one end, or who wants to go first?
Mine is less philosophical or anything. I noticed that we have a new job posting for a maintenance and facilities director, correct? And just
Yeah,
wanted
we had
to
a resignation last spring of our director of maintenance and custodial services. And we tried a variety of part-time options and adding it to other folks' roles. And it became very clear that needs a dedicated individual.
Yep. So I just wanted to call people's attention that is posted and up on the website. And so should they want to apply, it's up.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank Directors Williford and Greenherron for helping out with our participation in Washington State School Directors Association's annual General Assembly. It was a hybrid program, and I was unable to participate. I was unable to participate in full as I did last year. In fact, I was unable to participate much at all due to some conflicting personal appointments. I did pop in for portions of the program, but Directors Greenherron and Williford supported our participation by stepping in for significant portions of the program as well, and voting on behalf of our district in some of those proceedings. So I just want to say thank you for that. And it was important work. I took away from the conference that there was robust discussion on the subject of weighted votes by student population, and the impact of that system on students in large and small schools. And there's a bit of a philosophical question around whether the needs of small schools are unique and need particular representation when larger districts tend to sometimes have more robust attendance at these events. And there's the equity question around whether students enrolled in larger districts are fairly represented when they have one emissary to these proceedings as opposed to a small district having the same number of emissaries with a much smaller number of students represented. So I just wanted to highlight the nuance of these kinds of decisions that are being made at the state level. What this organization then does is works with its membership to determine its positions on important issues and then bring those positions and the voting membership's priorities to the attention of the state legislature. So it's important work. Thank you for participating in it. A second matter, I just wanted to let folks know that the Network for EdWork, which is a program of the Technology Access Foundation, we did a equity training with them a couple of years ago. David Goldenkrantz, who presented that training for us, has kept in touch with me. Just full disclosure, I was an applicant for a position with their organization a couple of years ago, and that was the means through which he and I kept in touch. But he invited me to submit a proposal for a workshop at an upcoming program called The Convening Journey Towards Liberation, scheduled for February 23-24 of 2024 at the University of Washington. It's a 2-day program. And when he asked me for a workshop topic, I suggested a panel on student voice. And he expressed gratitude for that suggestion and warmly invited us to host a panel, a workshop with students from South Whidbey to engage others in conversation around ways to elevate student voice. Or we could particularly focus it in on student representation on boards if we preferred. So this is just to start that conversation. What I would like to do next is work with our student representatives and Dr. Moshe and perhaps one of our 2 board mentors to carry this conversation forward offline and then see if it's a proposal that we want to make to the Network for EdWork. All right, thank you very much.
I was at all 3 schools on the first day of school, and I just want to echo the energy that I saw. Just appreciate all the teachers and staff for getting the schools ready for the students and for the warm welcome that the students were getting. So it seems like we're off to a great start. Thank you.
I'd like to include appreciation for Director Jackson for taking the lead on organizing our attendance at the General Assembly. It was fascinating the couple of hours that I was able to spend there, how closely mirrored to a school board meeting those were, with the president of WASDA playing my role, basically, the board chair role, with the professionals from the association playing Dr. Moshe's role of providing advice and making sure that all the boxes are checked and recommendations and that sort of thing, and then asking for votes out to the membership and coming back to that. It was a fascinating parallel to me. Let's see here. Alongside those lines, I've received an email about position prioritization following this General Assembly. So to our board members, including our student board members, and to our administration, I have until October 16 to provide them with our choice of the top 10 legislative positions to emphasize to the legislature. So if you could each individually get that information to me so we're not having a discussion, I will then collate that and present it back to y'all at our first meeting of October. So if you could get that to me, let's say by the Wednesday before, or the Monday before that meeting, which would be the, let's see, that's on the 8th, so it would be the 6th. Yeah. And I'll email you all that too, so you don't have to remember. The other note is I recently received communication from a member of the Washington State School Directors Association leadership team who had been sent our way by Mary Furtakis, who was part of the training we had at the last meeting, about our policy and procedure around curriculum adoption. Mary had been very complimentary of the stories that we had told about it, and so they're looking to design a presentation at the WASDA conference about curriculum adoption and wanted to hear about how we did it. And I was able to tell them about the two very different methods that we did our latest curriculum adoptions. First, the ethnic studies and environmental science curriculum adoption, which started with our students. And she was fascinated by that and loved the idea. And then the second one, which was the more traditional, following the policy very precisely and procedure and all of that. And the real thing that I emphasized to her was, beyond the excellence of those involved in those committees, thank you, Mr. Phillips, for your leadership on those, the coordination between administration and board via the superintendent, and making sure that the board's goals follow through into everything that's done. You'll get a chance to see that at our next meeting with the school improvement plans. But that's really the best. That was the main advice that I had for them, was to make sure that that's in alignment and being filtered down through the school, so you can see it come up to you when you have a presentation about curriculum. So you don't have to go back and say, why doesn't this align with our goals? Let's shift this and that. And so that was very well received, and might be getting in touch with Mrs. Phillips or some other folks from the district to get more information on that. But I thought it was fascinating to hear that outside observers are interested and impressed with the work we're doing on curriculum adoption.
Brooke, in those conversations, I would offer that there's a lot of people's work that has been braided into the outcome of that curriculum piece. And so many of those players are doing lots of work with lots of districts in our area. So as we're capturing that, I would call us back to our session that we had with Tammy Campbell, Dr. Tammy Campbell, in how she was talking about shifting our perspective. And that was really where that thread line really took root, I think, with this particular team. And so calling attention to her work and how that then influenced that thread line. Also, the curriculum policy that we developed, that was based largely on my experience and time in Everett. And so Everett Public Schools was really kind of the template that we built our policy off of. And then I would also just amplify not only Kayla's work, but also Susie's work, supporting and participating in that. And so just calling those people to the table and making sure that that credit comes down, because I know a lot of districts that are working with Dr. Campbell that, it might help them kind of see the intentionality behind our words and see how, on a small scale, because that is what small districts can do really well, is we can turn on a dime and open a TK program in 3 months. But but they can see how it looks on a small scale, and maybe that can help inform some of those larger districts how to make some of these changes and shifts.
Thank you for the input on that. That's a fantastic reminder of some of the previous work that led into this. I did provide Amy Cast, who was the person who contacted us, with the presentations. So those who were involved in the committees were called out very well. But thank you. When I get back in touch with her, I will remark on those two threads as well. Thank you. Are there any other board comments or questions? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much and good night.